The morning sun had barely touched the roofs when a cry tore through the still air. It was sharp, fierce, and full of disbelief. "Again! My clothes are gone!" Doors creaked open. Feet shuffled. From every corner, whispers rose like smoke. Women clutched their wrappers and muttered, "Spirits walk before the cock crows." Men frowned, shaking their heads. "No thief dares so early. This must be the work of unseen hands." A Benny stood in the center, her chest rising fast. Her eyes burned with anger, not fear. Around her, voices buzzed like angry bees, yet she stood taller, refusing to bow to whispers. Under the wide baobab tree, old women gathered, their backs curved like the roots beneath them. They talked low, but their words carried far. "It is Ekwensu's hand," one said, tracing a circle in the dust. "He steals from proud hearts to remind them who rules the wind." Another woman spat on the ground. "Mock a spirit, and it will mock you back." From the path, a figure passed, steps quick, shoulders high. "Talk all you want," came a sharp voice. "I fear no ghost tale." The elders' murmurs followed her like shadows. By the well, a crowd gathered, eager for new words. "No spirit steals my hard work," came the cry. The tone cut through laughter and chatter. "Thieves have hands like ours, not wings made of smoke." Some nodded in quiet agreement. Others whispered behind their palms. One young man smirked, calling out, "Maybe your lover likes fine dresses." Laughter burst like firecrackers, echoing against the huts. A heavy silence followed when she turned to face them. Her eyes were sharp as knives. No one laughed again, but the air between them crackled with something unseen, half anger, half pride. From the edge of the crowd, an elder stepped forward. Her hair was silver, her eyes still flames. "Child," she said softly, "the unseen has many faces. Do not fight shadows with fire." But the proud one lifted her chin higher. "Then let the shadows burn," she said and walked away. Behind her, the elder sighed. The villagers murmured that pride always blinds the young before it teaches them to see. Night came, heavy and still. The moon rose slow, spilling light like secrets across the huts. Behind one of them, a lone figure crouched, clutching a stick. Breath shallow, eyes wide, crickets sang. The wind hissed through the grass. From far away, a dog barked once, then fell silent. A whisper escaped her lips. "Let the spirit come. I'm ready." The air seemed to shift. A soft rustle, a faint hum, a chill that crept over her skin. She gripped her stick tighter. The night waited with her, holding its breath. A faint movement stirred near the clothesline. The air grew still, as if the night itself held its breath. Something or someone moved with the softness of smoke, graceful and slow. Eyes narrowed in the darkness. A shape glided beneath the moon, slim, silent, and shining faintly. The sound of fabric brushed the wind. A gasp escaped. The blue dress was no longer hanging. It was dancing. Under the silver moon, the thief twirled like mist, wearing the stolen cloth with pride. And then came the song. Low, haunting, familiar. It wrapped the air like honey and echoed softly, the same voice that once laughed in daylight. The same tone that once shouted, "Again! My clothes are gone!" A whisper trembled in the heart. That voice? "It's mine." The moon brightened. Shadows broke apart and light touched the dancer's face. The world seemed to stop. Eyes widened. Breath froze. The face staring back was the same. Every curve, every scar, every flicker of life. It was not a stranger. It was her own reflection, wearing her smile, only colder. The figure lifted a finger to its lips, a silent command. "Shh." The word drifted like wind across water. Then the twin shadow turned, its blue dress fluttering, and vanished into the forest's black mouth. Feet struck the earth hard. "Stop! Who are you?" echoed into the trees. Leaves whipped her arms. Roots clawed at her feet. The air grew heavy with laughter, her own voice bouncing from trunk to trunk, mocking, playful, wild. The chase burned through the darkness. Every step felt closer, yet the figure only slipped farther, as if the forest swallowed it whole. Branches cracked. Shadows scattered. And then, silence. Breath came in gasps. The night had gone quiet. Only the heartbeat remained. The moon hid behind a veil of clouds, leaving the world dim and breathless. On a low thorn bush hung a torn piece of blue cloth, fluttering weakly. The rest was gone. So was the laughter. A whisper trembled through dry lips. If that was me, then who am I? Somewhere, far beyond hearing, a voice answered. Or maybe it was only the wind. And the tale closed its eyes with the words, "If only a beanie knew who wore her face that night, she would have never chased the shadow." Morning brought color back to the world. Nkuma stirred to life, a village of needle and thread. Women sat in circles, their fingers dancing through bright cloth, gossip weaving between stitches. Laughter rippled like river water. But at the edge of the noise stood a small shop, quiet and neat, where one pair of hands moved faster than any. The needle flashed, the thread sang, and no word was spoken. Eyes glanced toward her from time to time. Whispers rose like smoke. She works alone. She speaks to no one. A woman who hides her heart hides other things too. Her hands never slowed. The cloth beneath her fingers grew beautiful, but the silence around her grew heavier. And though the morning was bright, her shadow still danced, somewhere beyond the edge of the forest, under the same blue dress. Laughter rolled through the village like dry leaves in the wind. Women gathered, their fingers busy, their tongues sharper still. A girl who sews for others but no man? How long will her pride feed her? The words flew, quick and playful, but their eyes watched closely. Pride was a dangerous perfume for a woman to wear. A calm voice answered, firm as a pounding drum. "My hands feed me better than any husband." Silence blinked. Then laughter burst out, bright and biting. But beneath their smiles, envy sat quietly, hiding its face like a shadow in daylight. They mocked her for walking alone, yet each time her thread danced through cloth, they watched in secret admiration. For her fingers never missed a stitch, and her spirit never bent. The sun climbed high, and with it came an old voice, soft yet heavy with wisdom. Wrinkled hands held a small calabash of palm oil, and words older than memory followed. "Child, you mock what you don't see. Spirits have ears sharper than men." A small laugh answered, light as wind. "If spirits want dresses, they should pay like others." A slow sigh. "Your tongue runs faster than your sense." But the warning rolled off her shoulders like water off stone. She tied her headcloth tighter and bent to her sewing again, as if each stitch could silence old tales. Still, the old woman's eyes lingered long, like someone watching fire dance too close to dry grass. Afternoon carried a lighter tone, a basket of yams, the smell of laughter, the comfort of old friendship. "Maybe your secret lover likes fine clothes," came the teasing voice, an eye roll sharp and amused. "If love steals, let it be caught." They both laughed, bright and free. But then the laughter broke, thin and uneven. "Still," came the quiet voice, "it's strange you never see the thief." For a heartbeat, the air grew heavy. Eyes met. Words fell silent. Beneath the noise of crickets and chatter, a seed of doubt found soil. By sunset, that seed had grown roots. At the village well, the women's whispers stirred the air. "A Bani's spirit walks at night." By the river, someone swore they saw a figure. Her shape, her dress, her voice, dancing under the moonlight. Children made songs of it, clapping and laughing, chanting, twin ghost, who wears your face the most?" The sound reached her ears. Her jaw tightened. Her needle stopped midair. "They will eat their words when I find the truth." And though her voice was calm, the air around her seemed to tremble, like the stillness before a storm learns its name. Morning broke loud and restless. Feet thudded through dust, baskets clattered, and voices tangled in the air. But above them all rose one sharp cry. "Did you see anyone near my house?" Heads turned. Her steps struck the earth like small drums of anger. Heads turned. Her steps struck the earth like small drums of anger. "My dresses are gone again." The butcher leaned on his table, laughter thick as smoke. "Maybe your own spirit needs new fashion." Laughter spread fast, bouncing from stall to stall. "Keep laughing," came her quick reply. "When the thief is caught, you'll choke on your jokes." Even familiar faces turned away. One voice, soft but firm, cut through the noise. You think I'd steal from you? The words hung between them, heavy as stone. Silence followed, not peace but pride. Her glare said more than truth could bear. Days slipped by, quiet but tense. Where there had been laughter, now sharp words waited behind every smile. Their jokes. Once warm as sun, now bit like cold wind. You've changed, came a voice. Maybe I finally see, came the reply. Accusations grew like weeds, choking what friendship once bloomed. The air between them cracked with things unsaid. From a distance, wise eyes watched. Old, patient, knowing. A house divided feeds a spirit twice, came the whisper. But no one listened long enough to hear the warning settle. Night crept soft and deep. At the edge of firelight, an old voice began to weave words like thread. Every soul walks with a chai, it said. A shadow twin. When pride grows strong, the twin grows wild. It takes your anger, your envy, your fear, and wears them as its face. A sharp laugh broke the rhythm. Old tales for children, came the response, half amused. Half proud, old tales keep fools alive, murmured the elder, eyes heavy with things seen before. The flames popped. The silence stretched, and pride smirked in the dark. Sleep came late that night, heavy as stone. But dreams moved lightly, like feet in sand. Cloth fluttered, red, blue, white. Dresses spinning without bodies. A voice hummed, soft and haunting. You left me behind. The words followed like footsteps that never touched the ground. She woke with sweat on her skin and fear in her breath. Outside, the wind shifted, gentle at first, then whispering close. Close enough to sound like fabric brushing against the dark. And somewhere in that whisper, her name sighed once, drawn out, tender, and strange, as if the night itself knew her secret before she did. The night stood still, heavy with silence. Eyes peered through the dark, searching, but nothing moved. The proud smile that once danced on her lips began to fade, replaced by a slow, creeping worry. A whisper broke from her mouth, soft as a trembling leaf. Maybe the old woman was right. Her fingers gripped the sewing needle tight, holding it close like a charm against the unseen. The air seemed to breathe on its own, alive, watching, waiting. Shadows stretched long, carrying whispers she couldn't understand, and the night itself seemed to hum with secrets too close to name. But fear never stayed long in her chest. Pride burned again, fierce and bright. The next night she set her trap. Under the pale moon, a red dress swayed on a rope, glowing like a drop of blood against the sky. She crouched low, heartbeat pounding like a drum. Come for it, her thoughts hissed. Let the spirit show its face. The world held its breath. Crickets fell silent. Even the wind dared not move. Then came a sound, faint, slow, and familiar. A song drifted through the air, soft as silk, wrapping around her heart. It was her own voice, calling her name again and again, each time sweeter, each time colder. The melody teased her courage, mocking the fire in her chest. Who sings with my tongue? She thought, pressing her back against the wall, trembling between fear and rage. The song stopped. The stillness returned, heavier than before. Then in movement. From behind the banana trees, something stepped forward. A figure, tall, graceful, wearing the same red dress she had hung beneath the moon. Her own face looked back at her. Same eyes, same smile, but colder than death. The figure moved slowly, each step measured like an echo. Its smile widened, empty and cruel. Her knees weakened, breath caught between disbelief and terror. This cannot be, her mind screamed, but her body would not move. The figure lifted its hand, a mirror to her own, and whispered words she could not hear but somehow understood. A chill ran through her bones. The shadow twin stood complete. Pride made flesh, envy made voice. The moon dimmed, and the air grew tight. The dress fluttered once more, as if alive, and for the first time she wished the old tales were only tales. But deep inside, where pride had once lived, fear began to take root, silent, deep, and growing fast. The night cracked open with her scream. Who are you? She cried, voice trembling but proud. The figure stood still, tilting its head like a curious spirit. Its eyes glowed faintly, mocking her fear. The air between them felt heavy, thick with something ancient and unseen. Then, without a sound, the figure melted into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but the echo of her own voice and the beating of her heart. She ran toward the shadows, but there was only silence. Only the moon watched, cold and pale, as she whispered to herself, "It wore my face." When dawn came, the ground still held secrets. The soft earth was marked with footprints, small and deep, pressing toward the village. Her breath caught when she saw where they ended, right in front of the hut of the one she once called friend. Her hands shook. "So it was you," she muttered, anger burning away her fear. The morning sun rose, but her thoughts grew darker. By midday, her fury could no longer hide. She stormed into the market, the world spinning around her shouts. "You wear my face at night!" she cried before the gathered crowd. Pots clattered, voices froze. All eyes turned. The one she accused stood tall, shock flashing into rage. "You've lost your mind," came the reply, sharp as a blade. The two stood like fire and wind, neither bending, both fierce. Their words clashed again and again, louder each time, until even the old women covered their ears. Whispers ran through the village like ants on sugar. Some nodded, saying she spoke the truth, that spirits often borrowed faces to punish pride. Others shook their heads, calling her mad, cursed, lost in her own shadow. The market split in half, friends turning to foes, laughter replaced by suspicion. The drums of Nkuma fell silent that day, for the people had found a new song, the song of fear, and as the sun dipped low, a soft wind moved through the village, carrying laughter no one could place. Some said it was hers, some said it was the spirit's, but all agreed the night would not rest easy again. The old woman's voice trembled like dry leaves. "Child, your pride feeds shadows. Spirits dance where anger sleeps." Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and her words hung heavy in the air. The younger woman laughed it off, but the sound carried no joy. Spirits? Let them dance if they dare. Yet beneath her bold tone, something uneasy stirred, a chill that refused to fade. By the week's end, the whispers grew louder. Customers shouted that their new dresses had vanished before dawn. One woman swore she saw two of the same seamstress arguing in the market, one wearing red, the other pale as smoke. Men muttered in corners, children pointed and giggled, and every door seemed to close a little quicker when she passed. Her name, once spoken with praise, now came with fear. Desperation drove her to the edge of reason. She went to the old priest, known for speaking to what others could not see. The air inside his hut was thick with smoke and mystery. He said nothing at first, only watched her, eyes deep, searching, unblinking. When he finally spoke, his voice rolled low like distant thunder. "You chase not a ghost, but your own shadow. Your envy and anger have taken shape. What you fear is you." The words struck her like a storm. For a heartbeat, she stood frozen, her breath caught between fury and disbelief. Then came the outburst. "You lie!" The sound cracked through the quiet, shaking the air around her. Without another word, she turned and rushed out, her steps loud and furious. The night swallowed her whole, but the priest's voice followed, soft and mournful. "A heart that denies its darkness will one day be eaten by it." And as she vanished into the dark, the drums of the wind began again, low, warning, and full of truth she refused to hear. Before the first rooster's cry, the silence of Nkuma broke with screams. Flames roared high, painting the sky red as the hut at the edge of the village burned like an angry spirit. Some swore they saw a single figure inside, standing still as the fire swallowed her. Others whispered of two shapes, moving together, one weeping, one laughing. The crackle of fire seemed to speak, carrying words no one dared repeat. When dawn came, only ashes remained, and among them, a sewing needle gleamed like a witness to secrets untold. The villagers gathered, their faces lit by the dying glow. No one spoke her name aloud. A mother clutched her child tighter. A man crossed his chest thrice. The wind hissed through the trees, and someone muttered, When pride meets its mirror, both burn. No one answered. Even the elders stood silent, eyes on the smoke twisting into the morning sky. They said it carried more than fire. It carried a soul that could not rest. Fire. It carried a soul that could not rest. Days later, Nkuma tried to breathe again. The drums returned, loud and heavy, beating away fear. Dust rose as dancers filled the square, their feet stamping out sorrow. Laughter fought its way back into the air. Among the colors and songs she appeared, draped in a borrowed yellow dress, her chin lifted though her eyes held storms. Whispers followed like shadows. "There she is, the one who fought her own spirit," they murmured behind fans and folded hands. "Some say she lives. Some say she walks between." She heard them but did not stop. The drumbeats grew louder, echoing her heartbeat, fierce and restless. And as she moved through the crowd, the sun caught her smile. Half light, half mystery, like a woman learning to live with her shadow. The drums shook the ground, heavy and wild. Feet stamped in dust, arms lifted high, laughter rolled like thunder. Then, from beyond the noise, came a sound that didn't belong. A soft, haunting melody, sweet, slow, and sorrowful. It slid through the rhythm like a ghost through smoke. Every head turned. The dancers froze mid-step. The melody rose higher. It wasn't from the drums nor the flutes. It came from a voice too familiar. The one who heard it first stood still, her breath caught. The sound carried her tone, her rhythm, her very soul. Each note pulled memories from deep inside, the song she once sang when no one was watching. The song she swore she would never sing again. Whispers spread. "Who sings like that?" "It's her voice!" But she stood silent, hands trembling, eyes darting through the crowd. The drums faltered, then stopped one by one until the air hung thick and still. The voice kept singing. The same words. The same pain. Dust shimmered in the dying sun as the crowd parted. Out of the silence came a woman, slow, calm, unhurried. She wore red, the same red that had once been stolen, the same red that burned in memory. The cloth clung to her like flame. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She moved like wind, wild, free, untamed. Every step followed the rhythm of that forbidden song. When she stopped, the two faces met. One pale with shock, the other shining with mischief. They stared at each other, the world holding its breath. The red dress glowed under the fading light. One hand rose. The crowd whispered, "Two faces, two hearts, one spirit." The drums began again, faintly, as if unsure. Then came screams. Children ran behind their mothers. Elders made signs in the air, calling on spirits for protection. Someone shouted, "Two of them! Two abanis!" The women stood like mirrors facing each other. Same eyes, same smile, same breath. Sweat glistened on their skin as the crowd watched in awe and fear. The air seemed alive, twisting between them. Then silence, loud and deep, swallowed everything. Even the wind refused to move. The woman in red broke the stillness. Slowly she tilted her head. The smile that followed was sharp, cold, and knowing. Her words cut through the air like a blade. "You made me, sister. Every lie, every jealousy. You stitched me with your own hands." The other stepped back. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. The red-clad one laughed softly and the crowd flinched. "You fed me your hate and I grew. You clothed me in your envy and I danced. Now I am whole." The crowd trembled. The two looked like one spirit split in half, light and shadow, pride and guilt, staring each other down. Then came the shouts. "Witchcraft! Witchcraft!" The drums stopped again. The children cried louder. Men grabbed charms. Women covered their eyes. The air grew thick. The dust rose, swirling between the two women like a spirit called to witness. The one in red smiled wider. "They will never know which one of us is real," she whispered. The crowd stumbled back. The drums lay silent. The sun burned low, and in that heavy silence, both figures stood, breathing, trembling, alive, until no one could tell who cast the shadow and who was the shadow itself. "You're no spirit. You're a thief," The words cracked through the air like thunder. Dust flew as one charged forward, hands striking, hearts pounding. The other moved fast, her red dress cutting through the wind like fire. Cries rose from the crowd, half fear, half thrill. Feet stomped. The drums that had once called for dance now beat for battle. Fingers clawed, arms swung. "You stole my face," one shouted. "No," came the reply, sharp and proud. "I only became what you hid." The two locked again, each blow echoing like a curse, each breath heavy with rage. Sand spiraled upward as the crowd formed a ring. No one dared move closer. The red dress flashed bright as flame, spinning and twisting through the dust. One strike missed, another landed hard. A body fell, then vanished, reappearing behind the other with a hiss of air. Gasps broke out. "It's not human," someone cried. Still they fought, faster, fiercer. Their movements blurred into something strange, almost like a dance. The dust rose higher, covering the crowd's eyes, until all that could be seen was red and shadow. Then, a deep voice cut through the storm. "Enough!" The ground seemed to shudder with the sound. A hand lifted, scattering sacred ash that glowed faintly in the fading light. It spread between them, hanging like silver smoke. The one in red froze mid-strike. Her eyes widened. The glow touched her skin, and a scream burst from her throat, a scream that sounded half human, half spirit. Smoke poured from her arms, her face, her hair. Her shape twisted, folding in on itself. "You can't destroy me," she wailed. "I am part of you," the air crackled. Her body flickered once, twice, and then scattered into ashes that fell to the ground, glowing red for a moment before fading into dust. Silence. Only the smell of burnt cloth lingered. A piece of red fabric smoldered and then curled in on itself, turning black. The other fell to her knees, gasping, trembling. Her hands were covered in dust and ash. Her chest heaved as she stared at the empty ground. Relief and fear fought inside her eyes. An old voice spoke softly. "You fought your own shadow, child. Your anger wore your face." The drums did not return that night. The wind carried the ashes away, and with them, the song that should never have been sung again. Flashes cut through her mind like lightning. A face in the moonlight, bare feet moving through dust, laughter that wasn't hers but came from her own mouth. The red dress swaying in shadows. Her hands trembled as truth rose like fire. She had stitched her own curse. She was the hunter. She was the ghost. Every scream, every whisper, every night of fear had been her own reflection dancing in the dark. The crowd stood frozen. No drumbeat, no chant. The air itself held its breath. The smell of burnt cloth lingered, mixing with silence so heavy it pressed on every chest. Eyes turned away. No one clapped. No one spoke. Only the wind dared move, carrying the soft echo of her words. "It was me all along." An old voice broke through the quiet, steady as stone. "Let peace wear your name now." Ash fell like slow rain as sacred hands sprinkled what remained of the red dress. The crowd bowed their heads, not from fear but from something deeper. Pity, perhaps, or awe. Deeper. Pity, perhaps, or awe. Slowly she rose. Dust clung to her tears, turning them into thin lines of clay on her face. The world felt lighter, though the weight inside her chest stayed. Then came the drums, soft at first, like a heart learning to beat again. Each thump carried warmth instead of fire. Forgiveness moved through the sound, circling her, circling the village. When morning came, smoke curled above the ruins of her hut. The ground was quiet, but not empty. Villagers stood at a distance, whispering to the wind. She fought her own spirit. None stepped forward, yet none turned away. In the hush after fire and fear, the story of Abeni became more than sorrow. It became warning. It became wisdom. It became song. The village no longer spoke her name with laughter. Where once there were whispers, now there was silence and slow respect. Heads bowed as she passed. Children clung to their mothers, peeking through fingers. Elders nodded with quiet understanding. The one who had fought her shadow now walked like someone touched by mystery, her steps steady, her eyes calm. Fear had turned to respect, and respect had turned to awe. One morning, he returned. No loud words, no excuses, only hands carrying palm leaves and wood. "Let's rebuild," he said. She looked at him for a long moment, the air heavy between them, then nodded. Side by side they worked, the rhythm of their effort soft and even. The sound of hammers was no longer a fight. It was a song of beginning again. As dust rose and the walls took shape, his voice broke the quiet. "I should have believed you." Her hands paused. "And I should have listened before shouting." The corner of his mouth lifted. Hers followed. Laughter came, small at first, then warm, rolling through the air like rain after long drought. The wind carried it far, past the new walls, past the ashes of the old. When the hut stood strong again, she gathered her dresses. The ones she had once guarded like treasure. The ones that had started it all. She laid them out in the square one by one, bright reds, calm blues, golden cloth stitched with pride and pain. "A spirit can't wear what's freely given," she said, her voice sure. Women came from every corner, eyes wide, mouths open. They had never seen her give so much, so easily. Mama Nika stepped forward, clapping her hands. "You've learned what pride can't teach." The others nodded, some smiling, some wiping quiet tears. And so, under the sun that had once burned with anger, there was peace. Cloth by cloth, mistake by mistake, the spirit of forgiveness was sewn back into the village, thread by humble thread. The sun rose slow and gold over the waking village. The old priest came walking, his hands steady, his eyes calm like morning water. He carried a gourd filled from the sacred river and a handful of ash the color of storms. He moved in a circle 3 times, his feet tracing old prayers into the earth. His voice, soft but strong, rose with each turn. "Let shadow sleep where it belongs," he said, and the wind seemed to bow, the air shifted. The world grew still. Her breath came long and deep, as if she had been holding it for many moons. The trembling that had haunted her hands stopped at last. Her shoulders dropped, her chest opened. It was as if the weight of 1,000 fears slid off and sank into the dust. For the first time, peace sat in her breath like a gentle drumbeat. The village began to move again. The market filled with color and chatter. Laughter broke through walls that once knew only whispers. Children ran, chasing goats and dreams. Women sang as they sewed, needles flashing like sunlight on water. When the drums called at dusk, she was there among them, quiet, smiling, her heart steady with every beat. Under the shade of the old mango tree, Mama Nika watched her. "Even light has a shadow," the elder said, voice soft but sure. "The wise ones make peace with both." The young woman bowed her head. The lesson sank deep, not as pain this time, but as calm. That night, the moon sat full above Nkuma, round and bright as a promise kept. The wind moved through the trees, whispering secrets only the earth could understand. And somewhere in that quiet, someone heard a song, soft, distant, familiar. It was not a song of sorrow or pride, but one of peace. The wind carried it far, carrying with it the story of a woman who met her shadow and learned to dance with it. She looked up. The sky stretched wide and endless, painted with stars that blinked like curious eyes. The wind carried the faint echo of the song that once haunted her nights. But her breath was steady now. Her lips curved into a calm smile. "Sing if you must," she whispered. "I am no longer afraid." The words drifted upward, light as smoke, and vanished into the night. The drums slowed, then faded. Smoke rose from dying fires, curling lazily toward the moon. The laughter, the songs, the heartbeat of Nkuma, all softened into rest. Even the restless spirit seemed to bow to the stillness. Peace wrapped the village like a woven cloth, warm and quiet. Yet far beyond the trees, where darkness met the horizon, something hummed. Not a threat, not a warning, just the voice of stories waiting to be told. Morning found the elders gathered beneath the great Iroko tree. The air was heavy with memory. One voice rose first, calm and strong. "You remember Abeni, the girl who fought her own shadow?" The younger ones leaned closer, their eyes wide. The tale had walked the village many times before, yet each telling brought something new, something alive. An elder woman spoke next, her tone low and knowing. "Not every spirit lives in the forest," she said. "Some rest inside us, made from pride, anger, and envy." The children shifted where they sat, feeling the truth of her words like cool water on their skin. Another elder nodded. "When pride wears a face," he said, "it stops being a thought and becomes a spirit." Abini called hers out. She thought it came to harm her, but no. It came to show her what she had become. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some bowed their heads, remembering their own mirrors. Then the oldest voice broke through, slow but firm. "The fire that burned her home did not destroy her," he said. "It cleansed her. For sometimes the fire outside must burn what's already burning within." Silence followed, deep and heavy, but not sad. And as the sun climbed higher, a new wind passed through Nkuma. It carried the sound of the drums again, faint but certain. The story had ended, but its spirit still walked, through hearts, through time, through the whispering trees that never forgot. The tale turned gentle, like a drumbeat slowing after the dance. They spoke of the time peace returned to her spirit, and the village called it a miracle greater than any healing. Her steps grew lighter, her eyes calm like dawn water. "When she gave away her dresses," said a voice from memory, "she clothed her soul instead." The words carried power. They reminded the people that wealth was not gold or cloth, but the quiet heart that learns to kneel before pride. Heads nodded as the storyteller's voice flowed on. "A heart that forgives walks lighter than a spirit of revenge," came the lesson. "Even the gods step aside for such peace." The listeners stirred, some glancing at the ones they had quarreled with. In their eyes, the firelight danced with understanding. The tale was not only about Abeni, it was about them all. When the night grew deep, the wind rose again, soft but alive. It carried her story through the huts and trees, weaving it into dreams. "Listen," the children were told, "that's the sound of a woman who learned to forgive herself." And they did listen. Some heard laughter in it, others sorrow, but all heard freedom. The storyteller lifted his hand, and the final words came slow, each one heavy with truth. The woman who mocked spirits became one, until she learned to forgive herself. The fire crackled, answering with sparks that leapt into the dark. No one spoke. The silence was full, alive, deep as the roots of the Iroko tree. Somewhere beyond the village, the wind sang again, soft, steady, eternal. It carried not the story of fear or pride, but of peace, and those who heard it knew the tale of Abeni would never truly end. For forgiveness, once found, never dies. Once found, never dies.